Two of our favorite legal experts join us now, in trial attorney Misty Marris and criminal defense attorney Brian Claypool. Misty, first on this idea that Caitlin brings up, that, and we heard it from the DA, that the state thinks they're going first here. What are we to make of that?
Well, it's an agreement between both prosecutors, and oftentimes when you have the federal government coming in and filing charges when there's already a state case pending, there's a real tug of war happening behind the scenes as to which venue this is going to be in. But according to the prosecutors today, they said that the federal government has agreed to allow New York to go first. Could that change when a new attorney general is installed, or DOJ? Could there be more pushback when we get into mid-January? It's possible, but now it sounds like we're moving full speed ahead on these state-level charges.
Kind of interesting the way the attorney for Mangione, Karen Friedman-Agnifilo, brought it up today, you know, the ping pong ball reference that we played at the top of our broadcast. And here she is, Brian, talking about the perp walk. As I said, apparently she wasn't happy with the whole display. I don't know how it affects the case or if it does, but here's Agnifilo once again. Listen.
He was on display for everyone to see in the biggest staged perp walk I've ever seen in my career. It was absolutely unnecessary. He's been cooperative with law enforcement. He had been in custody for over a week. He waived extradition. He was cooperative at all accounts. There was no reason for the NYPD and everybody to have these big assault rifles that, frankly, I had no idea was in their arsenal.
What's she trying to do, Brian, with this argument, do you think?
Hey, Connell, great to see you. Yeah, she's trying to affect the jury, right? She wants the jury pool out there to know that her client is being unfairly treated, that the government has already cast Mangione as being guilty, and that violates his constitutional rights. You're innocent until proven guilty. So she's trying to infiltrate the potential jury pool. But look, that said, this happens all the time with high-profile cases, where the country is looking at this very closely. I mean, Connell, this was a calculated, cold-blooded murder on the streets of New York on videotape. That's pretty chilling for most people across the country. So that's why they've amped up security. They've amped up, you know, the armed guards around him. But look, to your point, at the end of the day, it's going to have little or any effect at all on the actual trial of Mangione.
That fact that you point out, the allegation here should be chilling to all people around the country, you would think. But, you know, Caitlin was just reporting on these folks outside the courthouse who apparently are not as impacted by it. But the Free Luigi movement that we've seen has been really something to watch. The other thing that Agnifilo tried today, Misty, was, and it's along the same lines, she's going after the mayor. Because remember, Mayor Adams of New York was there at the heliport downtown when he came in. And here's what she had to say about the mayor earlier.
Frankly, Your Honor, the mayor should know more than anyone about the presumption of innocence that he, too, is afforded when dealing with his own issues. And frankly, I submit that he was just trying to detract from those issues by making a spectacle of Mr. Mangione.
So, taking a not too veiled shot at the mayor's legal troubles, Misty. But again, I mean, this is to what Brian was getting at, maybe trying to get to the jury pool, that people might be paying attention to this. What do you make of her strategy so far?
Yeah, I think Brian makes great points. And there's another other component to this, too, though. And it's that they're preserving arguments to be raised for potential due process violations. So specifically referencing the mayor, would it be advantageous to move this out of New York City, out of Manhattan? Is there a change of venue motion to be coming? We don't know any of that right now. But to the extent that she's saying, hey, if the mayor of New York City basically acting like he's guilty before he even goes to trial, that could be a compelling argument down the road. So preserving anything and everything that the defense team can, even at the early stages, that could either assist with any arguments they have relating to constitutional rights or preserving appellate issues, is critical. And it's what the defense is doing throughout the entirety of the case, even at the very beginning.
One more thing here that I'm interested in your take on, both of you really, is the death penalty. Because in the federal case, you know, the state will go first, apparently, according to this agreement. But Brian, what about the death penalty, which of course is in the news for all kinds of other reasons today, which we'll talk about later in the show, with President Biden commuting these death sentences for 37 of the 40 people on federal death row. But I wonder if the government, and there'll be a new administration in Washington for what it's worth, will pursue the death penalty here. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, hey, Connell, I was on with Natasha a couple days ago on NewsNation, and I brought up a point that I think the federal government should be going first, right? So the real reason why I think the feds indicted Mangione was on that first charge of using a firearm to commit a murder,
right?
Because that creates the death penalty, right? The death penalty flows from that. You don't have the death penalty in the state case. So if everybody is pounding their chest, flexing their muscles from the prosecution side, why are the prosecutors not allowing the federal case to go first and send a message? Let's seek the death penalty against this man that murdered a CEO in cold blood. So I think it's confusing and bewildering why the state wants to jump first where there's no death penalty. I think the Fed should go first. And then if you get the death penalty, then what's the point of having a second trial? And I really have an issue, quite frankly, as a criminal defense lawyer, with this let's charge with the state and let's charge with the federal. Let's see who goes first. And gee, if the state doesn't win, the Fed can maybe win. I really do still believe that violates the double jeopardy clause in the Fifth Amendment.
Your view on all that, Misty?
Well, the Supreme Court has spoken. I mean, look, I'm a defense attorney, too. It's definitely a nightmare to have to be defending in both jurisdictions on two different legal theories. That being said, Supreme Court has spoken, affirmed in 2019 that federal cases can be pursued in addition to state cases where there's a violation of both the federal law and the state law. So it's an argument that will be made, but it's likely these cases are going to continue on the parallel tracks. And from the state prosecutor's perspective, not only is this a huge case, I don't think Alvin Bragg would want to give it up. But there's a tremendous amount of leverage during the course of this trial where life without the possibility of parole is at stake in the state level case when there's a looming federal trial ahead. So is that something that could be used to try and get a plea deal with that life without parole, because the federal charges are going to be there at the end of the day anyway. So there's a lot of strategy behind the scenes. And I think we're going to see these cases play out on that dual track. And when the Trump administration comes in, I bet we'll see the death penalty on the table.
Right. And that's the president-elect's view. He's been in favor of the death penalty in these federal cases, and we'll see if his Justice Department is in this one. Thank you both, Misty and Brian. There's more to come here on NewsNation.